One, Charlie, take one.
Marker.
So at this time, I'd like to introduce Trine.
Hi guys, my name is Trine and I'm going to be your moderator for this particular panel. I'd like to start out by saying thank you to all our filmmakers for being here with us today and for sharing your art with us. I'd like for you to start out by introducing yourself, your names, the name of your film, and your involvement, your title on the projects.
Yeah, my name is James Lightheart. I was the producer and editor for this last film, K-Pop Forever. The director wanted to be here, but she's in the midst of moving across the country, so I am here in her stead.
My name is Gareth Kelly. I'm the writer, director, producer, everything person of the first film, Fresh to Frightening, the Sharon Green story.
My name is Megan Freze, and I was a model and producer for the film RAZMIK.
I'm Mike Freze. I was the director and producer of RAZMIK. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Well, Mike, since you have the microphone handy down there, I think I'll start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about how you first became aware of RAZMIK, about the artist?
Yeah, actually in 2015, I had an art film called All Seasons Become One, and that got into Albuquerque in 2015. I was a producer on that, and it was an art film about a Chinese artist named Diana Wong, and she's a famous Chinese artist, and so she's connected with a lot of the Los Angeles art community. And so we had a screening there in LA, and RAZMIK shows up to the screening. And as you saw in the film, he's very masculine and just, you know, like, I was like, who is that guy, you know? And my wife here in the audience, she's another producer on the film. She's a artist, so RAZMIK was selling his art, and in his big voice, he's like, come to my studio. And we're like, who is this guy? You know, like, is this legit? And so we went to the studio, and then we saw him teaching kids and saw the whole, it was my introduction to the Armenian culture. And so, yeah, that's really how we met him. And then Linda, my wife, started taking art lessons with him, and we made a little commercial for him, and then years went by, and then he eventually wanted to do a film, and yeah, so that's the background of it. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And are there any particular moments during your filming you'd like to share with us? Any funny mishaps?
Yeah,
or?
Definitely. We got some kids here, so I'll keep it.
Right.
RAZMIK is he's a character, and he's old school Armenian, you know. So he doesn't really. It's like he likes to do things his way, you know. But as a filmmaker, you got to recognize that, and it's like I didn't want to fight him. I just wanted to go with it, you know. And there's a lot of stories. There was times when I would move something, and he'd look around, and he'd move it back, and I'd be like, okay, well, that's good, you know, looks good. Usually we only got one take, you know. It was, but it was beautiful too, and it's challenging whenever you're making a documentary. Period. Just making a film in general is hard, but yeah, Megan was there. I don't know if you saw her in the film as a model.
Yes, please share with us, Megan.
Let's see. We put a incredible film together. First of all, thank you all for coming. And I want to share part of a scene that we filmed where Mike was at the beach with RAZMIK, and they were filming, and like he was saying, he moved the painting to face a certain way. You have to look out for things like lighting and just the way that it looks on camera, and RAZMIK had moved it back, and it was just the funniest thing. You'll have to see it behind the scenes, but.
Well, tell us something about your movie. And well, before we get in, I don't want to forget you this to ask you this. Were you part of the helicopter scenes? How did that feel?
Yeah, so the helicopter stuff, man, this is one of those where I get to kind of out myself a little bit. That was the most critical part I wanted in the film, and we didn't know the helicopter thing was going to happen until, because if it's foggy, there's no point flying because you don't see anything. And so we were just waiting all day while we were filming other stuff and while we were on the water. I think they only made the decision about 2 hours before. I have been in helicopters in my life before. They're kind of an unusual thing. You've probably been in them as a stunt lady. They're kind of weird if you've never been in them. I think they're a little weird. I was more than happy to go in the helicopter. However, my DP, he is probably half my size, and that, you know, that equates to another 20 minutes of flying time because of the weight. So this chunky monkey had to sit on the ground and watch them fly away. And the thing that haunts me about the helicopter stuff, to this day it haunts me, and no one else would ever know this if I ever said this, but you will see that at the front of the helicopter, looking at Sharon, there's a GoPro, and it's looking right at her. And that was, you know, the DP is behind her, shooting over her shoulder, and I have this GoPro looking at her. And I get the footage, and it looks great. And, you know, we can see Sharon's face. And literally a week after we'd shot everything, I got this last-minute invite to Alaska. And I just kind of threw everything in a bag and went up there and totally overwrote all the GoPro footage. So there's no GoPro footage. So, yeah.
And what were some of your more exciting locations you were shooting in?
Well, it was all filmed in Santa Barbara, where we both live. I met Sharon years ago. I'm a lifelong sailor myself, and I'd heard about this lady, this photographer, and her name kept cropping up. And then one day, I was on the toilet reading my sailing magazines, as I do when I'm on the toilet, and I realized that for the past decade, I'd been looking at her photos in magazines. I didn't realize who she was, and so I finally put two and two together, and I write for our local newspaper as well as everything else I do. And so I wrote a piece about her probably 6 years ago, and we both hit it off. She's from Canada, I'm from England, and so we have a Commonwealth bond. And we hit it off, and I said to her, I said, you know, you've got a really cool job, and it's unusual, and it's the kind of job I doubt people even know exists. And so I said, we should film something, we should do something. And so we kind of stayed in touch over the years, and then COVID hit, and it kind of all just fell into place. We'd originally wanted to do this broader project based around the Transpac, which is a race that goes from Los Angeles to Hawaii every year. Every 2 years they do it. And Sharon has photographed that race multiple times. And so we threw this together, and it's actually become kind of a proof of concept for that now. And now we're planning on shooting a feature based on that project next year, as long as we can find the money. But that's a totally separate thing. That's multiple days in helicopters, multiple helicopters, both on the mainland and in Hawaii.
Well, thank you. And I think it is interesting to know that all this came about because of your toilet habit readings. TMI, but thanks for sharing with us. All right. James? When did you first become involved with K-pop, and what drew you to it in particular?
So this film was a passion project of the director, Jamie. I've known Jamie for about 20 years, and she was looking for someone to help bring this project to life. One of the aspects of it that she wanted to emphasize, kind of subtly emphasize, was all three of the people interviewed in the film are YouTubers. And the way that mainstream production and creators or whatever look at YouTube is kind of a similar way to how we were showing that mainstream music industry looks at K-pop. So she wanted to emphasize that on YouTubers. And as someone who's been making YouTube videos for 7 or 8 years myself, she initially reached out to me to ask me the questions of how would you want to be approached in this sort of thing. And after a couple of conversations, she thought, you're already doing the producing stuff that I needed anyways. And then a little bit further down the line, it became she couldn't find an editor that was doing the stuff that she wanted to do. So I got pulled on with that as well.
Thank you. I'm just curious, do we have any K-pop fans out here in the audience? Any of you young guys? Oh, of course, up here. Yes, and I'm getting some, careful hands raised down here in the front, I figured. Yeah, it's something I only became familiar with a few years ago through my own daughter, who is a huge fan. Whenever we're in Los Angeles together, we always have to go to Koreatown and other places to find a lot of the information because, like your product states, there's not a lot of advertisement outside. And I know there's some talk about various reasons why that might be. What do you think is a main reason why it's not being portrayed?
In addition to what's spoken about in the film that we made, I've lived outside of the U.S. I'm from the United States. I've lived outside of the U.S. for the last 4 years. I live in Albania. And what I've noticed in those 4 years is so much of people's attention outside of the U.S. is often focused on the United States. And I think that it's a very similar way. There are musicians that are wildly popular in Albania that no one in any other country is going to have heard of.
Right.
Which I think is a very similar thing. Now, it doesn't explain the billions on billions of views that certain K-pop groups have, but it does have this, it does show this way of understanding how, and I have to be careful here, because again, I am an American citizen, but oftentimes Americans seem to be very self-centered and self-involved, and if something's not happening within the borders of their country, they kind of don't really realize it exists. And I think that, like we saw here with a timid hand being raised of being a K-pop fan, I think that there's this stigma involved with being a K-pop fan. I got a lot of reactions when I would tell friends of mine that I was editing a K-pop film. Right. And they would say, what K-pop, why K-pop, this sort of thing. And I never really thought about it. I'm not big into music, but once I started listening and watching the music videos, I saw the draw and I saw the appeal. And I think that because of the stigma there is, people just, the fans that are there are often passionate fans, but quiet fans.
Okay.
And so you get these billions of views of people that don't necessarily want to share that with other people that they enjoy this sort of thing. And so, in my opinion, in Korea, probably most of Southeast Asia, these groups are wildly popular. But then you come to the United States where the majority of music is produced, I would imagine. And again, that's over there. Those are people that don't look like me so much. It's music that I don't really understand. It has this different feel. I don't really like it that much. I think that those are kind of some reasons why it's not represented as well.
No, I think as a first-generation immigrant, I can actually definitely agree with you there. But I do think, like you're talking about Albanian artists also just being known within their own countries, K-pop has this global following, lots of fans, like they said, billions of people watching the videos on there. So it surprises me, and it reminds me about the way rap music was initially treated in the United States, where, again, there was this amazing music being produced, and the first time at the Grammys that they actually had a category for rap music, they chose not to air that portion, again, because of misconceived notions of what rap artists were. And I think Will Smith won that year, was not in attendance, neither were most of the other rap artists, because they had decided to boycott the Grammys for that very reason. So do you think that's something we're going to start seeing now if the judges continue to ignore?
I don't pay attention to music awards that closely.
Right.
But I'm fairly certain that BTS won an award within the last year, and maybe someone can correct me on that or not. And I think that our film was done before that happened.
Right.
So I think that there is a shift. I think it's moving. I think people are realizing things that are mentioned in our film. They have to shift. They have to include these things because so much of the audience of the Grammys, for instance, is watching for BTS. And, getting the little trophy, the BTS fans don't care about that. They don't care if the person gets the trophy or not. So if BTS is going to be kind of have this carrot dangled in front of them of, oh, you might get this award if you come and perform on our show and you're nominated for our show, if it's just always being dangled, the fans are just going to not care anymore. They're not going to even bother to watch it. They'll wait and like Bree said, they'll just watch the performance afterwards on YouTube. They don't care about watching the actual show. I don't know if the people running these award shows care if the fans of K-pop are the ones boycotting their shows because, as best I can tell, they aren't really caring what those people care about anyways.
Right. Well, I think all of our films here have a little bit of a common theme in that. And I'd actually like to hear a little bit more from Fresh to Frightening about this. You're talking again about becoming fascinated with this particular story, primarily because the photographer in question is a woman who often women are not represented in this particular sport.
Yeah, it's funny. Again, things are changing, I think, and I, as I noted, I read a lot of sailing magazines, and I saw a recent statistic that the majority of active sailors, when I talk about sailors, I mean racers. There's a lot of racing happens. The majority now is women. And there's been an explosion in women taking part in sailing. And it's one of the few sports where you can actually compete in a co-ed manner. Sharon's interesting. She is very much like, she recognized early on, and she touches on it in the film, that it was a male-dominated world. But she just kind of was fearless and said, I'm just going to go and have a go, which I think is great. We've also talked about potentially developing a series similar to using this as sort of a pilot about women with unusual jobs. Somebody like yourself would probably be a good subject matter. As a guy in my position, just find the people that are underrepresented or misrepresented and help them and help elevate their stories. But there's plenty of stories out there that need to be told, so just work with other people and you'll be just fine.
Well, we appreciate that. I think I can say we need allies.
Yeah.
And so our next question is for the RAZMIK team. Again, we're talking here about the Armenian genocide and how that affected your artist and a lot of the work that he did. He ended up eventually moving to California. Is that something he talked about, coming out here, leaving Armenia and coming to the United States to work as an artist?
Definitely. When we were making RAZMIK, I learned a lot more about Armenian history than I'd ever known about previously. It was a really cool experience because I'm really passionate about history, and so I think we were able to showcase that in a way that was also really helpful to the audience to learn more about history in that part of the world as well. RAZMIK kind of painted his way from Armenia to America, and it's really beautiful to see his culture and American culture represented equally in the film. And I'll hand it over to Mike Freze to finish that.
Yeah, definitely. The Armenian culture, that genocide, every genocide is awful, and most of our ancestors have experienced something like that if you go far enough back in history, right? In 1915 to 1920 in particular, it was, and they're still fighting over there today. So when you talk to these Armenians, at least the community that we have met in Los Angeles, they're just stricken by it, and their conversation is, this happened today, they took this city. And at the end of the film, when he's touching the painting, he had painted that painting in 1992 when they took the city back. And then he's like, but now I look at it and it makes me sad because we just lost that city. And so they've never really stopped fighting over there. And, you know, Armenians are underrepresented, as are Native Americans, as are one of the big underlying themes of this film is no matter where you come from, do what you love to do. And, you know, see a lot of young people here today, and it goes so fast. You know, when RAZMIK was your guys' age, he was in the Soviet Union, which was not a free country. So they were, you know, they would threaten you with your life if you talked bad about the government or anything like that. And so RAZMIK talks about the freedom of America in the film, and he talks about it all the time. One quick story is we were walking around Glendale, California. There's an outdoor mall, the Americana. And when RAZMIK walked, because he's now an American citizen, and when he walks around America, he's just proud. He's just, I mean, I should make a behind the scenes of just RAZMIK interacting with, he's like from another century almost. But one time we were done shooting, and he's like, well, we weren't done, but RAZMIK said we were done. And he goes, Michael, it's hot. Let's have beer. And so, okay. And so there was an empty table and this very busy restaurant outdoor. And RAZMIK walks up to the table. Oh, this is nice. It's under the shade. And a hostess comes up to us, and she's like, I'm sorry, sir, there's a wait. And there's a long waiting line. And RAZMIK looks at her and he goes, what I wait for? He's like, I come here all the time. He's like, it's hot. We just want to have beer. And he's like, what's your name? And he starts talking to her like he's her friend or whatever. And she's like, hold on. And she goes and talks to some guy behind the bar. And she comes back. She's like, all right, you can sit here. And he's like, yes. You know, and we sat down and wound up having a giant meal. But anyways, you can see that in his art because he paints the sorrow of the war, and he also paints his grandmother who survived the genocide, and he paints the happiness. Anything that happens to him, he paints it. And for young people and old people and myself, that's inspiring. And the Sharon Green story is inspiring. I'm watching that, I'm like, this is a woman who just did what she wanted to do. And he used great music, by the way.
And what is next for you two as filmmakers? Do you have any other exciting projects coming up?
Yeah, we're doing. I'm developing a TV series right now. We just started a new production company. So Megan is our marketing and social media. Also, Megan is local New Mexico filmmaker. So if anybody's in New Mexico and you want to link up to our social media, Megan has done a great job with our all of our social media. So I can.
So yeah, we earlier this year we all co-founded Free Spirit Films, which is our family creative production company. Michael is my cousin. We both have my maiden name, and so yeah, we also have the same birthday, born same day, 20 years apart. So we celebrate every year together. But yeah, this is like the second big film that we've worked on together. It's been really cool to just work with someone like you guys were saying. Great minds think alike. So. It's been nice to team up and work on Free Spirit Films together.
Thank you. And what's next for you?
Oh, man. Turning this into a feature. I'm currently editing another documentary about football, proper football, none of that NFL stuff. The soccer and a local pub that's a British pub. So I'm trying to squeeze that in by the end of the year. More festival circuit. Just got into Newport Beach and some other stuff. I have a couple of narrative features that I'm working on as a producer. I work with Andy Davis, who directed The Fugitive and Holes and that sort of stuff. And yeah, just chasing my dreams after being a concrete truck driver for 10 years.
And what are your future plans?
I focus a lot of my creative efforts into making YouTube videos.
Okay.
Currently, because of where I've been living, I've been making YouTube videos about life in Albania and what it's like for someone who's not from there. In addition to, as we've talked about, trying to represent underrepresented people and underrepresented countries. So when I moved there in 2018, I saw no YouTube content about the country except for an occasional BBC documentary or something. Because of that, I took it on myself to start creating kind of boots on the ground, day-to-day life. This is what Albania is like. So my plan is to continue doing that and find stories to make documentaries about along the way.
It's very exciting. I would like to check with the audience now and see if any of you have any questions for our filmmakers.
The question was, how long did it take for you to put it together, and what was the process? Is that correct?
I met him in, I met RAZMIK in 2014. We made a little commercial for him in 2015. And like I said, Linda was taking art lessons from him for a few years. So whenever I was there, I would always just kind of like randomly film stuff. So I kind of had a little bit of footage building up, like the barbecue stuff, you know, because he would always invite us to his house for barbecue. And I'm like, I got to film this. I can make a whole documentary on Armenian barbecue. I have so much. But I had to cut a lot, kill your darlings, right? It was just, because we're trying to tell the story of the art and the painting. But principal photography really started with the Sony A7S III camera was the main camera. We started in May of 2021 and shot all the way till I'd say October, like mid-October. Not the whole time though, because with RAZMIK, he teaches like 6 days a week. And so we pretty much only had Sundays to shoot, sometimes Saturdays. And it's difficult because of the language barrier. So it just took a while to kind of get it together. And editing took a while too. I started editing in late October, and I think I wrapped it. I showed her a cut in November, and it was pretty much wrapped by the end of the year. But then, as we're gearing up for the festivals, that's just when you do all your fine cutting, and so I took a while on that, and yeah.
All right, and I am sorry to say, I think this is the end of the amount of time we have for the Q&A today. I hope you guys come out and watch all the rest of the amazing content at AFMX. And a round of applause, please, for our talented filmmakers.
Thank you, Trine. Thank you, panelists. Thank you so much for sharing your work. I know I learned a lot from each of your films, so thank you very much.